Hello and welcome to Adventures with ADHD, where each week, I shed the spotlight on a fabulous ADHDer. Today, I've got Nikki Butler with me. Thank you for coming, Nikki.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
Great. I can't wait to get started. I really
Me
can't.
either.
And Nikki hasn't had the questions up front, so this is totally off the cuff.
So sorry in advance.
So, Nikki, I'm just going to dive straight in with the questions, okay?
Cool.
So, I dropped my blue tack. Hold on. Nikki, where are you from and what do you do?
So I'm from Alton in Hampshire, and I'm guessing by what do I do, you mean what do I do for work? So I'm a skin and scar specialist. I run my own business, and I am in my 11th year of being self-employed after wreaking absolute havoc in the corporate world for about 14 years.
Wow. And what were you doing in the corporate world for 14 years?
Law. So I was in personal injury claims, medical negligence for best part of a decade, and then I was head of corporate contracts for a big telecoms company, and I look back on all of that time with much amusement now for all my managers that said it was very much a square peg in a round hole. Lots of headaches for them.
Yeah, that's fascinating when you look back and you're like, oh
yeah.
So what made you go self-employed?
So completely honestly, like I hated it. So I'd spent a really long time in a corporate career. I'd done my law degree, really felt like, because my parents supported me, you know, I'm 46. I was of a generation that it was like, choose your path. And I chose it and hated it. And to be honest with you, I kind of got to a point that I had a very difficult relationship with my manager in my last corporate job. And I remember driving home one day and thinking, I could drive my car off the road right now and end it, as in end all of that kind of misery. And it was never my intention to do it, but it really caught me. And I was like, shit, I need to do something now. I mean, I was working really long hours. I was incredibly burnt out and miserable. And I was 36 at the time, about 36. And I quit. So literally, I didn't know what I was going to do. I was qualified in lots of, so I was qualified nutritional therapist, some beauty stuff, some PT type things. But I literally quit, living on my own with my mortgage, all the responsibilities. But I just knew I had to get out, because that was like a real breaking point for me. And then going self-employed was not really the intention. It's just that I needed to make money after I'd quit, because I had a mortgage and some other bills to pay. And I probably set up 4 businesses and shut them down before I set this one up about 7 years ago. And then I just found something that I loved, and that's kind of evolved for me. Not without its challenges. I'm pretty haphazard. But yeah, that's how I've ended up being self-employed. Nobody will employ me now.
Who wants to be employed by someone else again?
No, I couldn't do it now. But it's really interesting since I've had my kind of diagnosis, that I can reflect back and think, God, why did I find that corporate life so challenging? And so, like, it literally sapped. I used to say I sold my soul to the devil for over a decade. And I can see now why my managers used to get frustrated with me, because I would dance to my own tune. I would do things really effectively, but never in the way I was asked to do them. Didn't understand boundaries, led my own merry dance around the hierarchy. Mm-hmm. So I can really look back and think, I made my own life quite hard for myself, and I made my managers' lives pretty miserable. I wouldn't put anyone else through it. I wouldn't go back to being employed, because I wouldn't put anyone else through that now, because being so long out of being an employee, I think I'd be terrible as an employee now.
Yeah, it's a long time to go back, but you're not going back, you're going forward.
Not going back, no.
So you just alluded to diagnosis. So what diagnosis have you recently been given?
So I had a diagnosis of inattentive ADHD, which didn't come as a surprise to me. It was something that was actually mentioned by a couple of people close to me in my life, and And it sort of came a bit out of the blue because 2 people in the space of a week said, have you got ADHD, Nick? I was like, no. And it was only when the second person said it, I'm like, oh, maybe I should I'm going to have a little look at this. And I did so much research, like really hyper-focused research. I was like, okay, reached out to my GP who did the kind of the standard triage stuff. And she's like, yep, I'm going to refer you. Really long wait on the NHS. So I ended up going through private diagnosis, but through a recognised NHS partner. So had the inattentive ADHD diagnosis, also anxiety disorder, which in my opinion is a symptom of, you know, it's not a separate diagnosis, and autism. And that really took me by surprise. So I think because I'd researched so much about ADHD before I even asked for help, before I even reached out to my GP, and I remember reading this amazing book, The Queen of Distraction, in which I learned to tidy my house, which until that point looked like I'd been burgled most of the time. I used to joke and say, I like it to look like it's been burgled, because then if somebody breaks in, they'll already think the place has been turned over. But I learned to tidy my house up. I learned there was so much stuff. I'm like, it was that kind of euphoric, oh my God. But when the psychiatrist said to me, inattentive ADHD, anxiety disorder and autism, I remember thinking, no. And then since I've kind of gone back through and done a lot of research and reading and reflecting, it absolutely makes sense of my life. But I'm at that stage where I'm really learning and really trying to kind of piece things together.
Yeah, like you say, relearning, and it's almost a period of healing and grief sometimes, you know. So it's a lot, isn't it? Especially as it was a surprise at the time.
Yeah, and I think grief's a really good word to describe a lot of what I've been through, because, you know, I'm 46, I've never been married, I don't have children, you know, I can see how I've kept friendships and relationships really arm's length in order to kind of hide and maintain this super controlled and like lifestyle that I lead. And I have kind of gone through that grief process, or I'm going through that grief process of like letting go of everything I believed about myself. I think I've gone through thinking I'm just really shit at adulting. I'm like, I always thought, what secret do other people know that I don't have? Like, they've got great friendships, they've got great relationships. And he used to say it was like looking through a pane of glass and like thinking, what can't I see? What can't I get to? So it's been a process of grieving and thinking, but also trying to let go of it, because of like, what would have happened differently had I have known? And the reality is I'm never going to know that. But forgiving myself for lots of things that I had really berated and been cruel to myself about, you know, like as you do things, you think, what have we done that for? Now I can be kinder and go, okay, I get it. You know, you needed to feel safe, you needed to feel secure, you needed routine. And I am going through that process. But I'm trying to unlearn a lot of the things that I've put in place to basically mask and adapt and cope to society and a life that I've never really felt like I belong, fit in. I'm trying to see all the positives and the excitement of thinking, okay, I can relearn who I really am and figure out how can I put together a life that supports me and makes me feel safe as I really am, not this version of me that I've created. And that's really difficult.
Yeah, 100%. And it takes time, and your attitude towards it is really going to help you, you know, relearning, you know, and it's massive. But yeah,
there's some bits that I think are absolutely freaking awesome though. Like I've tried to really dig into this, and it's something I feel really passionate about. It's like being being autistic and having ADHD. For me, I'm like, it makes me think in completely different ways to lots of people. Like my creativity, or the things I've achieved, like the creativity, thinking outside the box, the way that I can do things differently. And then my like hyper focus and ability to go into things in so much more depth, like my business, like I'm a super geek on scar healing and skin. And I'm like, and I am going to swear, so I'm going to apologize. I'm so fucked off with like everything being referred to as a disorder or like something is broken. I'm like, shit, you should be celebrating all the awesomeness and just kind of thinking about being proud of like all of those traits and those abilities that set you apart from other people. And I have a real issue with the fact that everything seems to be driven down this disorder route, like there is something that is fundamentally wrong, as opposed to embracing everybody's uniqueness and differences. Like, yeah, I feel so strongly about that.
Yeah, I cannot use the word, well, I use it sometimes, but the word deficit, the word disorder, it just feels, it's just
Oh,
wrong, isn't it? You know?
yeah.
But yeah, like you say, celebrating the differences, focus on those strengths, yeah, and help with the challenges. They are there, of course they are. But yes, the focus, definitely.
Yeah. And the help is really, I've found getting help really difficult. Like, I'm super grateful to be able to work with you on the coaching side of it, because I feel like, and it's just been my personal experience, that there isn't really help from the places that I would have expected it, because it's all about putting people in a box and assuming everybody is the same. And there isn't really, I haven't experienced any real kindness or support. And in fact, a lot of judgment of, you don't look autistic, you don't look like you've got ADHD. I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? Like, no understanding or acceptance of the diverse range of experiences that we all have as individuals. It's all this box ticking, and I think for me, I found it really hard as a woman that's been diagnosed later in life. I'm not even finding much tolerance or understanding from other people, let alone knowing where to go for support.
Wow. Yeah, and I remember back when 10 years ago or so, and not telling people because of those responses, like, you don't look autistic or you don't seem like that. It's like, it's a long way to go, isn't there, with understanding. And that's why we're here today, to kind of that information out there and show people who we are.
Yeah, and I think that's so important. Like, I kind of think I've managed to have a successful corporate career, albeit that I left it was a success because I was so driven, so not even determined to have a career. I just kind of like found my way through it. And I'm in my 11th year of being self-employed. It's not like, I can't achieve something. I haven't told a lot of people that I'm autistic and I've got ADHD. And the ones I have told, I just had that response of, no, you're not. But the thing that really worries me and actually fills me some form of sadness is I don't want the younger generation to kind of be overlooked and not have the support. Or, I've got 2 young nieces and I'm like, oh my God, the thought of either them growing up thinking they're disordered or that they're flawed or there's something wrong with them, that in terms of like confidence and mental well-being, like will be like so detrimental. Like, I think it's really important to have positive role models, positive language, celebrating like the diverse skill set and all of those amazing things that anybody that's neurodiverse can bring to any situation and any relationship. Like, really want that to be a positive shift by, I guess, increasing the amount of positive role models and changing people's perspectives on what does autism and ADHD look like, and removing some of those media imposed assumptions.
Yeah. And do you have any plans to kind of change that narrative in your future?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. I feel really strongly about it, and I guess I'm still, because I'm still learning myself. So I am writing, kind of journaling in some, not so my intention is to write a book, but I'm just at the moment capturing everything that I am experiencing, feeling whilst it's raw. So, right the way through to the roller coaster of emotions and the experiences that I'm having. But I really want to find a way to change the way that people perceive and talk about neurodiversity, to make it more not just inclusive but celebrated. And you know what, there's a really big part of me that thinks, you know, when they talk about neurodiverse as if it's neurotypical is pretty much everybody, there's somewhere in my head that, like, I believe that more people are neurodiverse than we could possibly imagine. But because society has kind of created this disordered and dysfunctional type of view of what it is, people are like me, I'm 46, I didn't know. So how many other women like me, how many other people are hiding away because they don't want to have a label or they don't want to go through diagnosis? And like, what if we're the typicals? What if there are more people with this awesome skill set out there that just don't know it and are trying to like suffocate or fit into these societal boxes? And I really want to do something to kind of give access to resources, to share positive stories, to change employers' mindsets around. If you employ this person, you know, I'm going to go off on a tangent now, but you know, when you think about people going for job interviews, and I've spoken to people that are like, oh my God, what do I do? Do I say I'm autistic? And I would love it if people could turn up and go, I'm autistic, and what that brings to your organisation is this, 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 and this. This makes me way more suitable for the role than a neurotypical person because I have all of this skill set. And for employees to actually recruit neurodiverse employees, like, wouldn't that be amazing that it's something that's celebrated and appreciated? And that's, I just think that would be amazing and empower people to embrace all of their differences, and as a society to be far more accepting without the need to keep labeling people. That said, I do think it's really important that for anybody that needs support, that they have it, whether that's in a workplace or in a personal environment. You know, I'm waiting for some support myself from on the mental health side of things because it's really challenging. So I just think that we've got this amazing opportunity to change the whole landscape and to make the future generations come through feeling really good about themselves and hearing different language. I'd love to get rid of the disorders and the dysfunction words and that, you know, I just would.
Yeah.
Sorry, complete tangent there, but hope that answers your question.
And it's just so lovely to hear, you know, because it's such an important part of the story, you know, the language, the strengths, everything. So what you've talked a bit, what would you say your top what are your personal strengths? What's
creativity? I'd always start, because so not just like, you know, I love doing things like jewelry making or making clothes, stuff like that, but I think creative thinking has always been a strength of mine, whether that's been in corporate or my business or my hobbies, because I'm able to just think about things differently. I get ideas that sort of spark in my mind that can take me down like a little rabbit hole and enable me to do things differently and bring something different and valuable to what I do. So yeah, I definitely think that's a strength.
Yeah.
Determination, stroke hyper focused.
Yeah.
So if I want to do something, and I will be determined to do it, and it goes down this like intense, like I'm going to research it, I'm going to, you know, it's all in until I get to what I want to achieve. So I think that's a strength. And then I'm going to flip something that other people might see as a weakness to a strength, and that's impulsivity.
Right.
So I think that being impulsive, whilst it is challenging when I'm online shopping at 2 a.m. for John Lewis, that's maybe, it is what it is, I can return it. But I think being impulsive means that I try things that I wouldn't ordinarily try. Like I can see something, I'm like, oh, I'm going to give that a go. And I'm kind of off and I'm doing it. And I think that removes sometimes for me fear, because I don't have, and there's lots of things I'm fearful of, But I think when I have that impulsive kick, it's excitement, it's something new, and now I'm kind of more aware of it. I know that I can channel it in a way that helps me to perhaps experience things that if I didn't have that impulsivity, fear might step in the way. Yeah, so, but I don't know, not everyone might agree that that's a strength, but I like to view that as a strength.
Exactly, and that's it's how we think of these things. And I've said to you before, come to my comedy improv, because it's where the impulsivity is just celebrated. You know, you just step in and say what you like, but well, within reason. But you're absolutely right. And I've always found that I'm like, how can I be so fearful and so daredevilish at the same time? You know, like bungee jumping in New Zealand.
Yes, it's crazy.
And I think that's ADHD and autism kind of at their best, you know.
And can I be really cheeky and add a fourth? Because I think this one's really important. Like, I am hugely empathetic. And the reason I want to mention that is because everything I read about clinically, about particularly autism, were like that lack of empathy. That is utter bullshit. I would, I guess, caveat that with, there are things that I can have no empathy about. And I think, and really, like, I see other people affected, I'm like, eh. But if somebody is in pain or somebody is hurting, or that there are so many situations, and it could even be that it's, oh my God, anything about cruelty to animals or children, but even if I have a client with me, and lots of my clients have trauma stories, that's just part of what I do. I have this immense amount of empathy that can sometimes reduce me to tears, that can cause me to ruminate about somebody else's emotions. And I can feel, somebody can walk into my clinic, or I can walk into a room, and my emotions will change, like boom, depending on what's going on for that person. And I find that sometimes my emotions are so overwhelmed with empathy for another person, I have to find a way. So I do something called tethering, where I, in my head, say, that is not your emotion, tether. And I'll imagine myself rooting into the floor and releasing the emotion. And the reason I wanted to mention that is because it's often the thing that people make the assumption, and people have said it to me, you can't be autistic because you're like super empathetic. I'm like, oh my God, you've got so much to learn. And I think that's it. It's that sometimes it's an overwhelm of emotion and empathy. I have to find a way to shut it down, or it will completely overtake me, and I would be crying with clients. I'd be crying in the street. But yeah, I think that's really important.
And thank you so much for mentioning that. I was just talking to a friend about that last night. It's just so untrue, this lack of empathy thing. And like you say, absorbing others' emotions. And I love that tip you've got around tethering. I think that can really help people as well. I've not heard of it like that.
Yeah, I read it in a I can't even what book I read it about, but yeah, I just kind of, when I feel it, I just think, I literally in my head, I'm saying, that's not your emotion, give it back. And then if you imagine that you've got like roots in the bottom of your feet, and that you're tethering yourself to the earth, and then I just let that emotion go down my body and out my feet, and kind of release it. I find that really, really helpful. But even just that reminder of that is not your emotion can be incredibly powerful.
Yes. Yeah, love it. Thank you. So, have you got a funny or humorous story that you can relate now to your ADHD and autism?
Yep. I've probably got two things, if I can share both. They're
Please
quite
do.
quick. One of them was, and this is interesting because she's a really good friend of mine, my friend for a really long time. Her son is ADHD and autistic too. But I have obviously only recently shared with her my diagnosis. And I said, have you never noticed anything strange about me? She went, well, I've noticed that if we go shopping and there's a shop that, I want to go into and you won't come with me. You just say, I'm going to go to that shop. Or if there's a film that I want to see at the cinema and you don't, you just say, no, Whereas I would kind of consider, oh, well, we're going to the cinema as friends. That's the experience. You were like, no. She said, but the weirdest thing you ever did was when you stayed at, I hate staying at other people's houses. I hate not having my routine. So she lives an hour away from me. We'd been out. I'd stayed at her house overnight. She got up at 7 o'clock and I'd gone. And I was like, oh yeah, no, I left at 6 because I wanted to go home and have my breakfast at home and have my shower and have my routine. I didn't have my diagnosis then. I just thought that's what people do. And she said, I have spent years thinking I pissed you off. And I was thinking, did we have an argument? What did I do something? I'm like, oh no, I just, I wanted my shower, my breakfast, my routine. So I did that. And then this only reflected on this the other day. So I have no idea if someone's flirting with me. I have no idea if somebody's interested in me. But what I have, this might explain why 46, never been married. And I can say this for every long-term boyfriend I've had. So if anyone's watching that I've been out with, sorry. So you know that point when people say to you, oh my God, like, I really hope this lasts forever. Like, I'm so happy. I hope we stay together. I've realised that what neurotypical people do is they say, oh, me too. Not me. Not me. I say, I can't promise you forever. Like, I don't know whether my feelings will change or not. Or what I can do, I can promise you my best intentions and my honesty. So if my feelings change, I will just tell you, don't ever ask me to marry you because I can't sign a bit of paper that says my feelings will never change because they might. Yeah. And I reflect on that and I just think, my God, how have I ever had a boyfriend? Like, but it's that kind of realization of I'm so literal. I can't tell you what you want to hear to soften the experience. I'm like, no. My feelings might change. I don't know when. I don't know if they will. But there's a pretty big chance it will. Oh my God.
And that's that total. You're being honest, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. But what I have learned, Susie, is that people in the early days of a relationship don't want your honesty. They want to hear what they want, the reassurance of, oh my God, I'm always going to love you. I'm so happy. No, I am happy right now. I don't know if I'm always going to love you. And then I would wonder, I mean, I won't even go into the type of people that I've picked for relationships, but I have picked relationships with people that live at least an hour away, that are fairly self-absorbed, that have got no interest in my life, so they can't rock my routine. Like I can nail that. I can fake like not needing a routine, although I do still need a routine, like for like every other weekend and stuff. But yeah, that kind of like, oh my God, I haven't dated for ages, and I'm thinking, how will I go back to dating? In my head, I'm going to be going, oh, it's probably not going to go. It's probably not going to go anywhere. I don't know if I like you, bad shoes. And I'm going to have, what do I do? It's going to be a minefield. Yeah.
I guess you'll work it out when it happens.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing those. It's just great. So, last question then. What advice would you give to somebody that's newly diagnosed and may feel a bit lost or confused?
So my first bit of advice would be to work with you, because seriously, because like, you know, I've said to you in our sessions, that has been so golden for me, because one of the biggest struggles I found is that, so I don't know anybody else that is openly kind of a middle-aged woman that's autistic and has ADHD, and trying to talk to other people that just don't get it or come back with that you don't look autistic or like you've got ADHD is really difficult. So I think finding somebody that you can trust, that you can truly be yourself and be authentic with, and I think trying to figure out what's really important to you, and that's what I'm going through at the moment. Like, it is very much a roller coaster. But so I think the bit that so far in my journey, the bit that has been the most life-changing and impacting for me has been my coaching sessions with you, because I know I can say whatever I like to you. There's no judgment, and you get it. Like, to act, like to be able to tell stories like that, and for people to go, oh my God, I do that all this, and you think, yeah. And like, you made a comment to me last week, like, so we had our coaching session yesterday. This was like golden for me. Like, and I said to you, oh, did you want to move like Thursday night session onto Friday when we're doing this interview? And you went, no, I like to keep Fridays for fun stuff. And I was just like, that right there is why this works, because I wasn't offended at all. I found it absolutely hilarious.
Yeah.
That is it. There's no malice. There's no ill intent. You've just gone, no, Fridays are fun stuff. Like, and for you, coaching is work. And I'm the same. Like, you know, I give my mum a treatment on the weekend because I'm like, no, like I don't.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's my mum, but it's like, no, that weekends are for fun. Weekends are for rest time. But that for me is just like, and we've had other moments like that, but those moments of you don't justify yourself, you don't have to explain it, you see it as a funny little shared moment. So my biggest bit of advice to somebody is find a Susie, find somebody that you can trust, I always feel better when we've spoken. I can have the shittest week and be struggling, and we have our sessions and I'm like, I feel restored and energized and like back on track on my journey, because I've been totally honest and authentic in those moments, and I trust you. And so for anybody that is newly diagnosed, that is really struggling, finding other people that you can be like that with it's been golden, the most pivotal moment for me.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, that's lovely to hear. Honestly, I was trying to explain. I was like, no, I don't mean our sessions aren't fun, but because we do sit here and have a laugh within our coaching. But it's just like, you know, it's like a day off Friday, you know.
No, exactly, and that's exactly what I knew you meant. But it was just, I'm just like, that right there is why it works, because that's the sort of thing I do all the time. And then I would go away and ruminate about, oh my goodness, I've offended somebody, and I should now text them and over explain and over apologize for something that they might not even still be thinking about. But it is, it's just, honestly, it's golden.
Thank you. And I love our sessions, and that's why I knew I had to have you on this on my TV show, because you're very positive, very passionate, and you know, it's fantastic. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thanks for having me. I hope I didn't swear too much. I do swear quite a lot.
Oh no, it's like only a couple. People won't.
You should just maybe put a little thing on there to say like remove kids, or give them little earplugs if anyone's listening with children. Sorry.
Thanks, Nikki.
You're welcome. Bye.